Hello, my name is Sonya with Marso Network, and I'm excited to host our newest online video program, Navigating Christian Womanhood. My guest and I will direct women to valuable Christian resources and down-to-earth counsel, helping women in their journey. God's Word, of course, is going to be central and foundational. It's part of our new online summit workshop series, which you can find on YouTube, Facebook, and at our website, marsonetwork.org. I'm looking forward to spending this time with you. And today we have Lisa Penfield here in the studio. Welcome. Hello. Lisa is a longtime homeschooler. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have 6 grown children whom I homeschooled all the way through high school, got them into college and careers. I've been involved in homeschooling movement for 35 years in some way or another. I've been involved in the local chapter of Northern Onondaga LEAH, which is loving education at home, in leadership and support. After my kids graduated, I got involved with a co-op, Redeeming Mondays, and teaching literature, composition, and public speaking, and enjoying helping the next generation of homeschoolers advance and be able to be productive citizens.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Our first episode was with Amanda Gaiman, who is the local chapter leader for Northern LEAH Onondaga.
She took over after I did it for 5 years.
And so we talked about just homeschooling in general. Yeah. We know that there are a lot of homeschoolers now, and actually there's a greater interest lately in homeschooling. So we did talk about that. So today we're going to kind of piggyback off of that conversation and talk about after graduation, then what? So helping prepare your child for that next step. So in terms of graduating a homeschooler, what would you say are some important steps when you get to that point of graduation, or some of the steps leading up to graduation?
Yeah, even before graduation, I would say by 9th grade, starting to have the conversation of what do you see yourself doing in the future? Because what you do in high school kind of depends on the direction that you want to go. So does your student want to go on to college? Well, then there are certain things then that you need to do in order to meet the college's requirements for entrance. Now, the homeschool regulations have the minimum requirements for graduation. But if your child is going to go on to college, then you have to think beyond the minimum. The regulations say 2 credits of science, 2 credits of math. Colleges prefer 3, and depending on what your major is going to be, maybe even 4 years of math and 4 years of science if you're going towards an engineering or medical field. You want to find out, a lot of kids at 14 don't know what they want to do with their future. And even if they make a choice at 14, it changes by the time they're 18. So my advice is don't limit your child's options by, well, they're not going to go to college, so I could just do the minimum. Give them all the possible options available by keeping their academics as rigorous as you can and the child's ability to do so. But I would suggest kind of job shadowing or investigating different careers. Maybe say if a child says, I want to be a vet, well then maybe volunteer at the Humane Society or at the zoo. They have a program there as well. So find ways for kids to try out different careers or shadowing. Hospitals have programs. The Engineering Society here in Syracuse has one where they introduce various careers in engineering. So try and figure out what your child's interest. And don't think it just has to be college.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of students that are just not meant for college. Doesn't mean they're dumb. It just means their interest should go in a different direction. You have trade schools. You have apprenticeships. all of those do require some academics. So it's not
Right.
the dumb students that go into those areas.
Right.
And in fact, we were talking earlier about I really could use a good auto mechanic
Right.
and not have to wait 2 weeks to get my
Right.
brakes fixed.
Right.
There is a need in those fields.
Yeah.
Also, the military is an option. And even a student who may not be academically proficient, there's always the community colleges to be a transition into a full 4-year program.
Absolutely. You know, I think there are sometimes has been a stigma to if someone doesn't want to go to college. Well, not everyone was meant to go to college, and so, and like as you said, it doesn't mean that they're not smart. I think we have to do away with that stigma. We're in need of all kinds of careers, and so we're going to talk about some of those different options, whether it's college or going into a vocation or even the military. You know, I think the important thing is you mentioned starting to have that conversation young, when they're young, you know, finding out where they're bent as the parent, like just kind of seeing how God has kind of made them and using that as maybe even as a guide to helping your child in terms of directing them in the way that they want to go. As well, when you start having that conversation, you know, find out where they feel like God is leading them, and you know what their natural gifts and talents and abilities are. And again, having those different types of talents and gifts doesn't always point to college. In terms of a high school transcript, let's talk about that for a minute, because you have to have a transcript when you graduate. And I know that HSLDA, they do have sample transcripts for you as well. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think some parents, I've heard also some parents say, well, I can just have my child get a GED.
No, don't do
and
that.
I heard that that's not a good thing. So first let's talk about the transcript, and then we'll talk about why a GED is not a good idea.
Okay. Transcripts, HSLDA is a great informational site there. They even have on their free side of their website, they have samples in how to set it up. And then if you're a member of HSLDA, they have a way where you can just plug in the various subjects and grades right into a transcript, and there you go, you have it. Part of some of the questions I usually get about what do I include on a transcript is how do I divide up their grades or courses? Do I do 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and then what subjects they did under those? The only problem is if you have a student who maybe does algebra in 8th grade, how can you count that on their high school transcript if they did it in 8th grade and not 9th grade? So this is where it might be beneficial then to do by subject under math, algebra 1, algebra 2, trigonometry, calculus. Doesn't matter what grade they did it in. If they did it in high school level,
that's a great idea.
Then do it by that. English doesn't have to be, it can be English 1, 2, 3, and 4, or you can do American literature, British literature, world literature, whatever, however you want to list them in that respect there.
You know, and another thing I would suggest is start that transcript at 9th grade level. Like, don't wait until they're a senior to try to put together a transcript, because I did that, and then I didn't do it again with my other son.
The first child is the guinea pig.
The first child is always the guinea pig.
But one of the other things is keep it current always. I mean, I kept it on my computer, and every time I told you my daughter applied for scholarships through 11th and 12th grade.
Right.
Well, usually with each scholarship application, they want a copy of their transcript.
Yes.
So I've got it current on my computer. I can then print it off, and I kept track of grades by quarter, because New York State, we have to report grades quarterly. Some colleges only want the end of the year grade, but I kept it by quarterly. So each quarter, I would put down the grades that I gave
for
my
that
child. And my suggestion is, unless you're using a curriculum that is, there's a way to determine what's a 95 and a 92.
Yes.
I used A, B, C, D, and F.
Okay.
Because excellent work, fully mastering a subject, that's an A. B, you understand the subject and can do it independently. C, average, needs help doing it. D, you better repeat the course, really, if you got a D. And F,
You didn't get out of bed. You didn't get out of bed to do the work.
But that helps in then when you try and do a GPA, it's a lot easier than trying to figure out numerical grades, which a lot of the high schools in the area here do.
Right.
For us as homeschoolers, a lot of our curriculums don't lend themselves to a numerical grade, but more an alphabetical grade.
So for college, do you think, because you have that experience, are colleges okay with the A through F grading?
Definitely.
Okay.
And that's the system they use at college, so they understand that.
Right. Okay.
So they accept either form.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So we mentioned this bad word, GED.
Yes.
And so again, I've heard parents say that they feel like because their child needs some type of, I guess, transcript, so to speak, or something that shows that they've completed school and they've looked at a GED as an option. Why is it not a good choice?
Well, if you look at the New York State prison, I can't think of the right word, but prisoners and the state do not like to do the GED. They want it called something other than that.
Okay.
Because it looks like you're a dropout.
Right.
And it has a bad connotation.
There's a stigma to it.
Yes. So there are other ways to get your high school diploma without a GED. You can get, I can't remember if it's 24, I think, credit hours. If you get at a community college, then you can be granted a New York State diploma. New York State is a little funny with who accepts a homeschool diploma, but federally, if you're applying for aid or anything of that sort, the federal government recognizes the parent's diploma. So you are a graduate.
Okay.
The military, they take your transcript, and then they want the letter of verification or compliance that a superintendent will give you. So you don't need a real diploma, certified diploma. I mean, we as parents can make our own diploma, and it is accepted because we have followed the New York State regulations.
And we're monitored.
Yes.
As homeschoolers, you're monitored by...
In New York State, we are overly monitored.
We are.
I mean, quarterly, we start with IHIPs and then quarterly reports and end of the year assessments. A lot of states don't have the requirements that we do.
I also even read somewhere that the military, they don't want to see a GED. They want to see that you have completed your high school coursework.
HSLDA will advise any student who is a homeschool student who is applying for the military not to get a GED because you were then automatically put into Tier 2. In the military, they have Tier 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Tier 1 are those with high school diplomas or college diplomas. Tier 2 are dropouts.
Okay.
The number of occupations that are open to students that are in a Tier 2 are very, very limited. In fact, the Marines and the Air Force will not accept Tier 2.
Wow.
So that narrows down choices. Also, in order to be considered under the homeschool regulations that the military has set up, you have to be homeschooled for all 4 years of high school.
Right.
So you need to make that decision at the beginning of 9th grade. Are we going to homeschool all the way through?
Right.
If you take your student out in 10th grade or 11th grade, it may narrow their options as to what they can do in the military.
Absolutely.
So think about that as you're considering high school.
Absolutely. So now we are gonna talk about again college, career, or vocational, as well as military. So let's talk about college right now. SAT, ACT scores. You can talk a little bit about the importance of that when it comes to college.
Slowly, colleges are not putting as much weight on those scores, but they can certainly get the attention of colleges if you do well.
Yes.
And I would highly recommend, there's what's called the PSATs, which a student can take in 10th grade. It doesn't count for anything in 10th grade, but it gets them familiar with the exam. And then 11th grade in October, take the PSATs, and that will count towards the National Merit Scholarships. And what grade score you get will then draw attention to various colleges and may even at 11th grade be offered scholarships or, hey, consider our college because of your scores there. Right. You have multiple times that you can take the SAT and the ACTs. ACT is a little bit more subject specific. Right. So if you have a child that thinks more concrete, that might be the test to take. ACTs are more West Coast, Midwest schools, kind of ask for those. East Coast is more SAT oriented. Okay. And SATs, you have English or vocabulary, what you think of a lot, and then the mathematical parts of it. And depending on the scores combined together, there are plenty of study books. I like the Princeton Review books. Okay. There are sites now online that you can do practice tests.
Yeah, I think Khan Academy does that.
Yes. And they give you strategies of how to answer questions or how not to answer certain questions if you don't know the answers. Right. Because it's not intuitive of, well, I can guess. Well, if you guess and you guess wrong, you're more heavily penalized than if you left it blank, right. Which doesn't make sense to me. But
yeah, so you have to understand not just the material, but how to take the test. Yeah. Right. Now you and I were having a conversation before we started recording. We were talking about covering the cost of college because we do know that college can be very expensive. So just share with us what your daughter did. Yeah.
Well, most parents have heard of the FAFSA application.
Right.
That's just the first step of trying to finance college. Right. That gives you the basic information. And you'll fill that out usually in January as soon as you get your W-2 forms and all of your statements. You quick do your income tax so that then you can apply for your student's aid.
Right.
What I did with my child was we didn't have a whole lot of money for this child to go to. Her first choice and only choice was a very expensive school.
Okay.
So we found this website called fastweb.com. And what you do is you go on and you fill out a profile about your students' interests, what their career plans are, things that they do, whether they are involved in volunteer service or, even your cultural background, ethnic background. There was a scholarship for being of Greek descent or French descent or Irish descent. Right. So you fill those things out, and then about once a week we would get notified of you might be eligible for these particular scholarships. Right. And so then you go and you fill this out. Well, when my daughter was in 11th grade, we started every week. She was required to fill out at least one scholarship application. Wow. By 1 week before she left for college, she had all of her tuition covered by scholarships and grants. So that was a huge relief.
What a blessing. Wow.
Yes. And as you know, with 3 kids in college, that's not just the only expense, but that's a huge expense if you can take that off the table.
Exactly.
Yeah. And to then be able to cover room and board and books. Books are a huge racket in college there with their costs.
Yeah.
But to then take your loans out just for those is a big financial relief there.
Also, doing well on the SAT and ACT scores, there are certain scholarships that schools will give based on those scores or based on your high school grades as well.
Exactly.
So that's why it's important to do as well as you can.
Right. And there's also, you can, while your student is still in high school, take CLEP exams.
Yes.
Now, you have to make sure that your college will accept CLEP credit. But depending on how well you score on these exams, say if your child is doing American history for you, when you're done, have them take the CLEP exam for American history. Or I had, at the co-op, I teach literature analysis. I had a student who was pretty much an average student in my class, didn't really excel in the class, took the literature analysis CLEP exam and got college credit for it. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do well on the CLEP exams, just as they're going along. If they take biology, take the biology CLEP exam.
It won't hurt. And it's not that expensive to do the test.
No. I remember when my daughters did it, it was $60, but that's aging me. I'm pretty sure it's over $100 at this point, but still, compared to 3 credits in a college, a lot cheaper.
My middle son, he did a CLEP class for, I believe it was for calculus. And so he was able to get college credit for that. That was 4 credits, so he was able to get college credit for that. Now, for those who maybe struggle with SATs and ACTs, another route parents could go is community college.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that. I know that it's more cost effective because you're going to do a lot of the same general ed classes at a community college that you're going to do at a 4-year school. But also, it's an opportunity to transfer into a 4-year school without having done the SAT or ACTs.
One of the precautions I say in doing community college is know what 4-year college you might be going to.
Right.
To find out, will they accept those credits?
Yes.
I know with my youngest daughter, she wasn't very cooperative with me on writing and felt I was a little too nitpicky. So I said,
No, not you.
So I told her senior year, okay, let's take English at OCC, because she'd never been in a school setting.
Okay.
So I figured this would be a good way to get her ready to go away to a 4-year college. Take English at OCC. And thank God she had it. Miss Arjamond, who was a very good English teacher, made her write like 12 papers, and they had to do 3 in class. Wow. And she was just as picky as I was. But it gave her the experience of knowing what someone else expected and not doing it for me. When we checked with her college that she was going to transfer to after graduation, they had no problems taking the general ed classes. But anything that was going to be in her major, they wouldn't accept.
Wow.
So we knew right away, okay, well then let's not waste our money at the community college on those courses. And so then what she took at OCC was transferred. And you can also do dual enrollment with your child.
Right.
Which is take college classes for high school credit as well as college credit. And I have known of a couple of students who, by the time they graduate from high school, have also graduated from OCC, or there's Cayuga Community College and Tompkins Community College that are right around here that a number of students graduate from while homeschooling.
You know, and a lot of the dual enrollment classes, while there's the same classes that they are teaching on campus, they're a lot cheaper.
Yes.
They are a lot cheaper. I had that experience, just with one of my sons doing, actually a few of them did dual enrollment, but yeah, it just made a huge difference. That class, and it was the exact same class at the school where they wanted to attend, but they charge less. Yeah, for that. So again, with junior college, as and I kind of mentioned this before, that if you have a student who struggles with the SAT or the ACT, that's a really good route.
Right, because they don't need the SAT in order to go to junior college. Anybody can sign up for courses there. And then when you transfer to a four-year college, they don't ask for SATs or ACTs. They're looking at your transcript.
Exactly.
And that's then you're into the college of your dreams, hopefully.
And I think that's a great idea. I mean, not everyone is cut out to do an SAT or an ACT, to do well on those tests, but I don't think it's a real clear indication of how well you're going to do in school. So let's talk about that student who is not interested in going to college, but they're interested in a trade or going to a tech school or a vocational school. As a parent, how could you help prepare that student for going in that direction?
Well, first find out what trade they might be interested in. Talking to people in that field, job shadowing, carpentry, masonry, the electricians union. I know they have a placement exam to see. You have to take a math placement exam with them. If you score well, they will train you, and they will train you for free. You'll actually get paid working on the job. Yes, they will have classes that you have to go to, but you also get practical experience as you're learning the job. This is the way people used to learn their trades, through apprenticeships.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great for them to pay for your training. Right.
So you don't come out with all these loans to have to repay.
Right.
So consider these fields. And I think some of us are so bent towards college that we forget to expose our kids to other careers that, hey, sometimes a plumber gets paid a whole lot more than a college graduate does with all those loans that they have to pay back.
Exactly.
So don't limit your child. I would rather have a child who loves what they're doing than have a PhD.
Exactly. I read a book entitled Boys Adrift. And he was speaking of this person who wanted to do an apprenticeship in plumbing at a school, or just at the high schools in that particular area. And so out of 4,000 students, they had maybe 20 students sign up. And then out of that 20, 5 of them dropped out. And he was saying, kind of what you were saying, he said, they make a lot of money. They do make a lot of money, but just the idea of the lack of interest in going into those fields. And I know when I was in school, they had shop. And home ec. And so it allowed students to have the opportunity to look at carpentry or automotive tech or some of these other areas if they weren't interested in college. So I think that unfortunately has done a disservice to some of those fields, as well as to a lot of students who could have a very lucrative career.
When my oldest son was thinking about going into the military, I had him talk to people from various branches of the military. Some were officers, some went in as enlisted, different branches, to find out. He knew he didn't want to go into the Navy because he didn't want to be stuck on a ship on his off hours there, no place else to go but on the ship. So have your child talk to people that are in the fields that they are interested in. And then, maybe job shadow or apprentice. My youngest daughter makes a living as a book illustrator. When she was thinking about going to college, the college that she ended up going to, they had summer programs where a student could come live on campus and for a week intensify study into that major to see what it's like. And there were a number of students who go, this is a lot more work than I thought it was. Or, at home I like to draw, but you're expecting an awful lot. So the reality of the career, actually, they get to try it out before, all right, they're halfway through a degree and then decide, I don't think I really like this. parents might save themselves a little money by investing time in investigating different careers with your child through high school.
Yeah, I know I think there are places as well, like BOCES that offer training in different areas. So
Homeschoolers fight an uphill battle trying to get into BOCES through high school, which is another reason to join HSLDA, which will help you navigate the waters and the roadblocks that might be put in place there. But also there are adult BOCES classes after high school that they can try out as well.
Yeah.
And they have open houses, BOCES, I think it's every Thursday, so that parents and students can go and check out the different courses there. They have medical, they have trades, they have electronics, technical stuff there.
Automotive.
Automotive, yes. I keep wanting to push that after trying to get a mechanic on a timely basis there. But and so that you can try out these careers and see what they're like and ask questions.
Even cosmetology.
Yes.
I think they offer that as well.
Cosmetology, culinary arts there.
Well, yeah, there's so there's a lot of great options.
Yes.
If your student is not interested in going to college. Now, the other option is the military.
Yes.
And I know that you know quite a bit about that.
Right.
So identifying a military career goal. I mean, there's like active duty, there's the reserves, there's full and part-time, National Guards. And so can you tell us a little bit about if you have a child that's interested, or a student, I should say, or a young person that's interested in going into the military?
The recruiters are always anxious to talk to you. My advice as a parent, always go with your child through these recruitment talks.
Okay.
So that there is a witness to what they promise.
Okay.
I have found the recruiters here in Syracuse are very ethical, but I have heard of horror stories in some other big cities. So parents, until they get on the bus to go to basic training, you have a right to be there and hear everything that's being said.
Wow.
Go online. I can't remember, what's the website for the military?
Is it careersinmilitary.com?
Yes, that's the one.
So careersinmilitary.
And you can, so the student can go online, parent can go online and see the various opportunities without having a recruiter hound you down. Because once they get your name, you will get a phone call every week or two at the house. And you know, my son was very anxious to get into the military. My daughter's name somehow or other got on their
list,
their scope there, and it's like, no, she's not interested. Please stop calling. No, she's not interested. But he was very interested, and so he checked things out. He always had a bent towards, he wanted to protect the little guy and serve his country. And he loved reading military history and battles and such. So his bent, I could tell by 12, he was going into either the police or the military. And he's a military police officer and has been for 23 years.
Wow.
When you sign a contract, now you can sign a contract for the National Guard, and you will still go to the same basic training as active duty recruits go to. You're all lumped together in one. Depending on which service, it'll be Air Force, I think, is 8 weeks. Marines is 12 weeks, a basic training, and then you go on to your occupational tech school. The contracts are for 8 years.
Okay.
Whether it's 8 years active duty
Okay.
or 2-3 years active duty, the rest of that contract is done in reserve. So know in advance that
it's a commitment.
It's a commitment.
Yeah.
Yes. But the benefits that you get, you know, the GI Bill for school, health care, and all of that stuff. Yes. Back when my son enlisted 23 years ago, most students went in for the college money.
Okay.
However, 2 years in, 9/11 happened, and pretty much you're assured if you go into the military in some way or another, you're going to be in the Middle East, in harm's way of some sort.
Yeah.
My son served the first 10 years. He was waiting to go overseas. And he served for 10 years in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the Minuteman missile sites guarding those. He begged to go overseas.
Wow.
He then came to Syracuse after 10 years with the 174th in the reserves. He was full-time military police on the base there. He was activated twice over to Afghanistan through the National Guard. So if you think going into the National Guard will keep you stateside, no.
Not necessarily.
No, be prepared that you may be deployed. And even right now, you had the National Guard involved with helping some of the refugees that were coming in from Afghanistan.
Right.
I know my son was asked to go down to New Jersey to help out with this stuff. So you get a lot of opportunities in the military there.
Yeah. And, again, like college opportunities as well, in terms of paying for college. I received a call from my son, as a matter of fact. Excuse me. I've actually received a few calls. And, they're just wanting to know what his plans are. And, okay, he's in college, but has he thought about the military after college? So they do offer quite a few opportunities.
My son had this mistaken idea. He did not want to go on to college and do more studying. He wanted to do the stuff. Well, what he learned in the military is you are never done studying. There's always this certification you have to go for, and they really push. If you come in without a college degree, they will make sure that you get your college degree. They're always pushing.
That's great.
And they made my son finish his degree.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's great. So again, if someone is interested in college or they're interested in the military, but eventually they may find themselves, with a college degree that has actually been paid for by the military with amazing benefits.
In fact, over COVID, they pushed, okay, you can't go to the gym, you don't have a lot of outside activities. Guess what? The University of Phoenix online courses, they offered them for free to the military. Wow. So you people in our service here, take some courses, upgrade your education.
That's great. There's so many options, for our students. And I know as parents who homeschool, we want to, you want to be involved in like every aspect, in terms of, obviously you're always preparing them to leave. That's our.
And if you succeed, they do leave.
And so, but it's, just hopefully we've shared with people just a little bit of information of what you can do when that child has graduated to just kind of help send them off in a direction, whether it's college or vocational or career or military. There's so many options out there. So Lisa, thank you again for coming and sharing just your own personal experience with raising 5 kids. Six kids. I left off with raising 6 kids. Thank you so much, and for your wisdom. Thank you. Lisa has also taught my boys. Thank you for your input in their life. They are doing well, so I thank you for that. And I'm telling you, there's some classes that without the help of Mrs. Penfield, they may have struggled in. They aced because of Mrs. Penfield, and there's a lot of students who have. So I thank you for your service to the homeschool community.
Thank you.
And again, you're watching Navigating Christian Womanhood. We thank you for this time, and we'll be back with you next broadcast.